Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped metal. Please visit our website, The Metal Pit, at www.themetalpit.org. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit, and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com at The Metal Pit 666. And if you have any questions or suggestions for this podcast, you can email us info@themetalpit.org. I am your host, Blake, and today it's just a two-person podcast, me and one of my writers here at the Metal Pit. Jim, how you doing tonight, Jim?
Oh, it's great. Great to be here. It's awesome. This is so much fun. And yeah, what a duo we are. This is awesome.
This,
Two metal masters.
this is the first two-person podcast I've did in a long time, because when we started doing the podcast, I only had two people. Then we switched to three, sometimes four, and we just had somebody cancel on us. So that's why we're down to two instead of three. And it was too late to find a replacement. And we're going to back to 1984, and we're going to talk about Wasp, and it's their debut album. And briefly, I don't know, Wasp has 15, I believe it is, studio albums,
Yeah.
which surprised me, actually. And I think on Wikipedia, it even says they're recording another album. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I think they did do some tours last year, I saw. So we're talking about the debut album, 1984. Like I said, they're an American heavy metal band formed in 1982. They come out of the Los Angeles, California metal scene back in the early 80s. They gained notoriety kind of for their shock rock themed images, their bad lyrics, or their whatever, and their raunchy live performances. And this album and the next one, The Last Command, which came out in 85, are the only two albums they had that were certified gold so far, anyway. And well, before I get to that, when did you first hear Wasp? Was it this album or later?
Oh yeah, I mean this came out in 80 this came out in 84, so I was 13. And I mean, you hit it on the head, shock rock. So the album cover blew me away when I saw it. I think I saw I Want to Be Somebody, the video, probably on the Power Hour. And it just blew me away. These guys were awesome. These guys were just crazy. And and as the whole album came out and their stage shows were released, I mean, they were a mainstay in Circus Magazine and Hit Parader. And, I mean, the first possible single that was supposed to be on this album was Animal, Fuck Like a Beast. So, you know, that became kind of a bit of a legend, like, oh yeah, and you could get that as a single that was released. I had it on vinyl, and but I mean, the album was wicked, and it's funny because this is the only album in Wasp's catalog that has all the members at the time on the front of the album cover. It's got all four of them on there. All the album covers from then on pretty much just focus around Blackie, the lead singer. So it's I mean, but no, this was a mainstay, I think, in everybody in 1984 who was in. I was in junior high then. I mean, everybody had this album. It was so popular, and like you say, I think it went gold in Canada and the US. And but I mean, no, it blew me away. The songs on this is a really, really good album, really good debut album.
Well, for me, I also, this would have been the first album that I got, and it's probably the same thing. I probably saw I Want to Be Somebody video
Oh yeah.
on on the TV. Yes, Much Music here in Canada, or yeah. But as I was listening to this today, there's been a while probably since I've listened to the whole album. I'm thinking that probably in 1984 I liked it a lot better than I do now. Like if I was like giving it a review in 1984, it'd probably be a 10 back then, but I wouldn't give it a 10 now. And their next album, The Last Command, I liked a little better. That has Blind in Texas on it, which is one of their most popular songs. And so that's probably my favorite Wasp album. And like I said, they have 15 studio albums, but I probably stopped listening to them after the third one, more or less, because I have those three on vinyl. I checked because I have the Inside the Electric Circus, the third one, and I think I remember
Yeah,
having a CD for maybe the Headless Children one. I think it was,
yeah.
but I think I really remember listening
I
to it
have
that
all their
much.
like I've bought all their albums because I tend to buy all the albums. So, but you're right. I mean, it went on like you had this, then you had The Last Command, you had Inside the Electric Circus, Headless Children, and then Blackie Lawless kind of did that concept album, The Crimson Idol, which was pretty critically acclaimed. But then after that, it definitely there's a whole myriad, a whole section of albums that just kept coming out. But I think the lineup changes and the changes of the times probably really slowed things down quite a bit. I mean, you're looking at this original lineup here with Blackie Lawless, he's the bass vocalist, Chris Holmes, I mean, the lead rhythm guitar, Randy Piper, lead rhythm guitar. And what's really cool about that, and the drummer, which was Tony Richards, which a cool story, well, not a cool story, but he ended up kind of having to leave the band due to the record company after this album because they were worried about his extracurricular chemical I think dependency of some sort. So the record, I think it was Capitol Records that signed them, and they were worried about I think where this was going after sort of the antics kind of started. And I mean the band was kind of touted as this. I mean, when it comes down to it, you've got the PMRC really went after Wasp. And I mean, their stage show was so edgy. You had women on racks, torture racks. You had them throwing raw meat into the audience and such. You had, Blackie Lawless had a cod piece that shot fireworks out of it. He had the saw blades all down his arms and down his legs, which were really cool. And, they were like the party band. I mean, every picture in every magazine, they were there, with Jack Daniels, and just it looked really cool. And I aspired to be like so back then. And I mean, I think any 13-year-old kid, that was awesome. And and then to coupled with the the pool scene in the rise, the decline of Western civilization part 2, the Penelope Spheris film with Chris Holmes scene in the pool where he's drinking straight vodka and his mom's there, and it's so cool. But anyways, no, and what I really like about this album, this album is, you had Piper and Holmes kind of sharing like lead rhythm, like lead guitar duties, and in a lot of the songs they kind of trade off, so it's really really cool, and it's a cool effect. I love that, and and these guys were tall guys. Blackie's tall, Chris Holmes is tall. I mean, very, with the heels on and stuff. I mean, these guys were well over 7 foot tall and just looked all awe-inspiring on the stage. And I remember buying on VHS, and I got it again on DVD, which was Wasp live at the Lyceum Theatre, I think in England. And it was this tour. And it's so cool because they come out to I Want to Be Somebody, or the Hellion, I can't remember, but he's got the two guitarists chained up, and then he kind of breaks them off the chains and kind of releases them onto the audience. So it's really, really cool. I mean, their stage show, they took it one step further than what was going on at the time, maybe even 5 steps further, and got them in a lot of notoriety, I guess you could say. But the interesting thing with PMRC is they were on the Filthy 15, but they were number 9. And I'm like, so I had to Google and check out to see who number 1 was, and it was Prince's Darling Nikki. Like, you got to be kidding me here. So you got this because they did it for Animal, Fuck Like a Beast, and then you have Darling Nikki is considered a more edgier song. I think they got totally ripped off on that. They should have been number 1.
Yes, I don't. Yeah, yeah. I know. As you mentioned, that song. Now, that song was supposed to be on the album. Animal was originally the first track on the album,
Yes.
and I think was going to be the first single
Yeah.
too. But they thought they better take it off, or some stores wouldn't sell the album. They thought so. That's why they took it off and made it a single.
Yeah, yeah.
I have, you said you have it on vinyl. I have it on vinyl, but I have it on picture disc vinyl too.
Oh, wicked. Yeah.
It cost me $6 in 1984 because I still have the price tag on the sleeve there.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if it's worth anything. It's probably worth more than $6, but I don't know if it's
Oh,
worth
yeah.
too much. I'm not sure how many copies they made on picture disc, but yeah, I still have that. But
And another neat note too is this album. There was all kinds. Everybody. Well, the origin of the name Wasp. Nobody really like. I mean, Blackie Lawless has publicly said, whatever you think it is, he doesn't care. But on the first album, on this album, they had, I guess, it was originally going to be called like Winged Assassin. And then they also had a cassette release for the first release. I think it was the European vinyl release. It was called Winged Assassin. And then it was I Want to Be Somebody on the cassette release. And then they finally just brought it out as Wasp the debut. But they have, I guess, written on the on a part on some of the albums that, we are sexual. So, or, there's all kinds of what the WASP stands for. But apparently, according to Blackie, he liked putting the abbreviation, like the dots in, just because nobody had done that before and it looked really cool. And that's what they stand behind. And he said, if you've got a meaning out of it, well, that's up to you. He doesn't care. But I thought that was pretty neat. And Winged Assassins would have been cool. But anyways, a great record for sure. But so much kind of, again, the record company, and I would assume they were probably a little nervous. I mean, you start off with your first single, they think it's going to be like they want to do this, and the record company was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. And then with the outrageous stage show, and then all the trouble with the PMRC, and just it kind of snowballed into this thing where the record sold definitely on notoriety, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, these guys are the baddest, toughest band in the land." And they, in 1984, glam and hair metal was just probably starting to take a little bit of maybe more to the 85, 86, but these guys definitely were going into a more shock, more sleaze rock, and more of a heavy metal. I think that's what I really liked about them. They didn't for me, they weren't lumped into that whole 1980s stuff at all. They were much harder.
yeah, it does. Like there was a debate, or I seen somewhere where some people call them glam metal. Like some
Yeah.
of the lyrics on this album, I could see were kind of tacky or whatever,
Oh
and
yeah.
could have been glam metal, but the music is a little heavier than
Yeah.
glam metal bands were. But yeah, so I was going to ask you what you call it. Now you're a Kiss fan, and now as I look at, do you think they're probably influenced by Kiss? Don't you agree?
I would say, yeah, definitely the stage show to a much more extreme version, but I would say kind of like that. But then probably like early 1970s, more raw Kiss. I mean, Kiss in the 80s kind of just turned into, once they took the makeup off their albums were pretty soft and just kind of
Yeah.
mainstream kind of hair glam. So, but yeah, I could see that for sure. I'm sure Alice Cooper probably had a big influence on them as well too. I mean, and a note there's a rift obviously between Blackie Lawless and Chris Holmes. Chris has, from what I understand is, his royalties have not been paid, according to Chris and the Chris Holmes camp, and that Blackie doesn't credit him for much of anything to do with those early Wasp albums and that. And it's kind of sad because Chris Holmes was definitely a humongous part of this band. And I mean, what a talented guitar player. And he, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you watch the I Want to Be Somebody video, and Chris has got those shin pads on. He's wearing almost kind of football gear, and he's just jumping around, and he gets the crowd going. And I think, I think Blackie, I think it's 50-50 with, you got Blackie as the voice, but Chris definitely brought that kick-ass attitude to this as well, and definitely deserves his sort of, I guess, day in court to some degree. And but anyways, that's the business end of it that creeps in and kind of destroys something that's pretty cool, So
Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, I just as I've listened to this today and looked at some of the lyrics maybe more closely than I ever did before, probably, I just saw some similarities of Kiss. Their name is four letters like Kiss.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
Blackie
point.
even kind of looks like Gene Simmons sometimes in some of his poses, like for photo shoots, not necessarily on stage. I'm not sure about that since I don't think I ever seen him live that I can remember anyway. Um, but and there's one of the songs that we'll get to that I thought this could be a Kiss song with some of these lyrics the way it is. So we'll get to that. I guess we can start now. As I said, we won't. I guess we won't talk about. We already mentioned Animal, the one that was supposed to be on it, and then on the re-release, it is on it.
Yeah.
So we'll go by the original version, I guess, here with, and it starts with I Want to Be Somebody, which of course is a big heavy metal rock anthem, which were big back in those days with your Twisted Sisters and stuff like that, that had their rock anthems for the live shows. So what do you think of I Want to Be Somebody, the first thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the way to this is the way to start off the album. I mean, yeah, Animal would have been good as the 13-year-old with the swearing and stuff. It would have been like, oh yeah, but I gotta be honest with you. I mean, this just kicks it off in the right direction. It's a killer song, and like I say, during the live, the video is wicked. And I mean, the video just shows the energy. I watched the videos today because I was like, I wanted to re-see it, and I think I even posted it on my Facebook. But I mean, it's just this is the anthem of the album. But there's so many. This whole album is really, really tight. I mean, musically, in that video, you can see Piper and you can see Chris Holmes play off each other. They take a full on guitar solo and split it pretty evenly, and I think that's pretty cool. And it really makes that attack sounds like Accept does it well, the band Accept, and I mean that with the dual guitars, that's what you got to go with, and I absolutely love it, and the energy of the video and the song is just so cool. And I mean, it's just pretty much throwing it out there. Here you got the debut album. First track is I Want to Be Somebody, and that's what it's all about. And he's pretty much just they're just throwing down the gauntlet, saying this is what I want to do. And Blackie Lawless was also when he was growing up, he was also he could have been probably a professional baseball player. He was apparently a really, really good baseball player, and I know I believe it's his uncle played in the MLB. So he comes from a bit of a line of he was definitely a sports person. So but this is a really, really cool song, and I mean, I can imagine why the record company wanted this probably as the lead off single for the album, more so than obviously Animal.
Yes. And I did check out that set list website for playing songs live, but I'm not going to do a lot about that. Just these first two songs on the album are their two most played live songs.
Yeah.
I Want to Be Somebody, it says they played it 759 times, and the next one, Love Machine, is a little more, even at 773, which is kind of odd that you would think they would play I Want to Be Somebody at every show. So I don't know
Yeah.
why they missed 15 shows for some reason of not playing the song. I'm sure they got sick of playing it, but still. But anyway,
You know,
yeah,
you
it's
you'd
that like I
mentioned you had
sorry.
mentioned the tour too last year, and unfortunately at the European leg, I think Blackie had to he finished it, and then he had to push back his second half of the North American dates. I know they're still planning to do it due to his back issue that he's had, but he's had apparently surgery, and he's on the road to repair. And I know they're looking at going back out on the road, and yeah, I believe they have an album fairly close to being done. I think it's he's got a new album coming out. So yeah, just to bring that live portion up, I guess they put on even and even the tour that they had last year over the last year and a half. They had a ton of sold out shows. So it just goes to show how much people want to still see Wasp. And I mean that's apparently they put on. I've seen a lot of clips from the shows and they sound really, really good. I think they're really, really cool. I'd definitely go see them.
Um yeah, it says like I was trying to think, have I seen them live before or not? And I don't think I'd have. Now, I mean, they would have been an opening band if I would have seen them, but I know
Right.
they opened for Iron Maiden on their somewhere in Time tour, I think, but in Europe, so not in North
Yeah.
America. But
Right.
they've played with Kiss, as mentioned, and Iron Maiden, Dokken, Crocus, Helix, Keen,
Metallica.
Armored
Yeah.
Saint, Metallica. It says, and then yeah, the relatively unknown Metallica.
Yeah. Yeah. At the
But
time. Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, so that was a big rock anthem, of course, and that was big, and I would think that's probably their most recognizable song. I mean, I mentioned Blind in Texas before, which is probably my favorite Wasp song, but I would think I Want to Be Somebody is their probably most recognizable song, I would think. Then we go to Love Machine, and they spelled love just like they spelled wasp with periods in between. And this is the song that I thought kind of reminds me of, it could be Kiss a little bit. If they would tone it down a little, it would be like Kiss, because I don't think there's too many heavy metal songs I like with the word love in it. So it's a very catchy song, or the catchy chorus, but it's not one of my favorite ones. But how do you like Love Machine?
This is a classic, and what I love about this album is like I 1980. This was 1984, so I was 13. So when I started dating my eventual wife back in, I think it would have been 85, we both loved this album. I mean, we had a sort of an on again, off again relationship all through high school and stuff. But this is one of the albums or one of the bands that we both kind of duly like together. And I like a lot of different stuff, and she tends to gravitate these days, towards that country music a little bit more, and I can't stand country music. So, but anyways, this is one of the bands and one of the albums that we both equally love. I love this song. She loves this song. It's wicked. And the funny thing, this video, I believe, was banned or had some. It was banned in many countries because in the video they've got kind of a dunk tank and there's a girl swimming in it, and Blackie keeps pushing her head under. So, uh, you know, a good wholesome vibe, but it's a wicked song. I like it. There is a ballad on this album. This isn't it, but yeah, definitely. If you toned it down a little bit, it could have probably been a Kiss song. But it is a kick-ass song, and I mean the whole chorus of LOVE, and it just kind of this is a wicked tune and one of my favorites on the album. But not my favorite song on the album, but another, like, I mean, you rip from I Want to Be Somebody right into Love Machine, and then the next song, and it just keeps going like that. I mean, there on the original album, there's 10 songs, which is perfect for vinyl, and it's a perfect for it. Like, I don't really think there's any bloat on this album whatsoever. So, but yeah, it's a classic and a great song, a great song.
Then we go to the song The Flame. I'll let you start.
Oh yeah, I mean this is one of my top two songs on there. I mean, it's another great anthemic song. I mean, you're already three songs in, and this is like another ripping, just fast and heavy song. And I think this was one of the two songs on this album that were co-written by Blackie and Chris Holmes. So I know, looking it up online, I see that he has been given some writing credits on this album, just a couple of songs, but still, no, this is a wicked song, and another one that I can imagine they do live a lot. I know. I think on the last tour, I think they might have did a like they grouped a bunch of songs together and did like a longer kind of set for this era, I believe. I'm not 100% sure if they did them individually or if there was just kind of a grouping together just for time's sake, because they have so many songs. But this is another killer song, one of my favorites, and it's so heavy and so cool. I love it, absolutely love it.
I don't think there's, now again, I haven't listened to any, like I said, albums past like the third or fourth one, so I don't really know about their song lyrics now. But back then, they weren't too, I think, concerned about their song lyric, because most of the choruses are just repeating the name of the song over and over again.
Yeah.
Or this one is Before the Flame Burns Out, so
Yeah.
that's the chorus, and that's
Yeah.
all there is to the chorus. But this is one of like the sixth or seventh most played live from this album, so they don't play it as much, I guess, as some of the other ones on here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they should.
They get a lot of repetitive choruses. I noticed as I was listening to this today and reading the lyrics, something that I wouldn't have noticed back in 1984 when I was 16, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
Not 13 or whatever. Or maybe I was 8. I forget. Wait, I was 18 even, but yeah, I don't think I paid too much attention to the lyrics back then. Then we get to the song.
If we hung out together back then, Blake, you could have bought me beer. That would have been great.
I guess, yes. Then we get to track 4, which is called Bad. And again, they like to put the periods between letters for song titles for some reason. But yes, we got Bad, B-A-D, Bad. And yeah, I'll let you go again.
Yeah, this is again, this probably, if I had to, I've got to put them in order of my favorites. This would probably be towards the back end of the album. I mean, yeah, the whole spelling part of it's a great good song, but it's not my favorite song on the album. This and maybe even the next song, and the next song is an actual single. But yeah, this is kind of one like you finished off the flame, you're heading into B-A-D, bad. They spell it out. It gets like you say, it's a lot of the songs on here. Definitely, the chorus part of it is heavily repetitive, and this is no different at all. So, but probably one towards one of the more weaker songs on the album. Still a great song, but and fits in good. I mean, you're not going to have 10 superb massive hits here, so but it does. I know when I was a kid I absolutely loved this too, so probably now it's probably doesn't hold up as strong as some of the other songs do.
Well, one of the lyrics is Bad, make your mom and daddy sad.
Yeah.
So I guess that's about a girl being bad and
yeah,
things that I guess she's not supposed to do. But yeah, this is probably my least favorite song on this album, especially now. Like again, if I go back, I can't really put my mind back into 1984 with this album because there's so many good albums from 1984. Because we're gonna do our top 10 albums of 1984 at the end of this, but there's so many, so I can't really recall. But I don't know if I would have loved this song back then. I think I loved every song back then. It's just different now when you listen to it 40 years later or whatever it is. Yeah, it is 40 years later. So then we go to School Days, which you mentioned, and this starts off with kids reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I don't know if these kids knew that there was supposed to be a song called Fuck Like a Beast on this album or not when they did this. But anyway, so what do you think of School Days?
yeah, not one of my favorites. I was a single, and I think this was more along the lines of I get what they were trying to do. I kind of throw it along kind of a bit of an Alice Cooper kind of vibe, not the actual music, but the fact that he's kind of ripping into school and again, school kind of like school's out, I guess to some degree, but definitely a little bit of a different direction. Yeah, I remember when I first got the album, and all of a sudden the kids started reciting "I Pledge Allegiance." First of all, we're Canadians, so we're sitting there kind of like, "What the hell is this?" and but anyways, I'm kind of wondering where they were going. But I remember being at a school dance, and this big heavy metal guy had a freaking ghetto blaster there, and we were waiting to get in, and he was blasting this song, and I remember going, "Hey guys, that's Wasp, that's Wasp," and the album had just I don't know, would have been probably, I think this came out in August of, so it would have been that September was the first school dance of the year. And I remember he was blasting it, and I was like, oh man, that's wicked. And it was just that popular. So, but yeah, I think this was just a stab at sort of maybe a little bit more of I mean, a lot of the albums definitely tongue in cheek, and this is no different.
Well, I just wonder if the kids that do that thing at the start of the song, if they got a copy of the album to take home to show their parents and say, "Hey, I'm on this album, Dad, Mom, and Dad."
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how that works back then, or if they just give them $20 and say, "Yeah, you're doing this."
There you go.
Okay. And yeah, that's an okay song. Let's see, I put down one lyric: "A homework hell house screams at me." Now, lyrics don't make too much sense back then, but that's okay. No. It's their first album. They're young.
Yeah.
Okay, then we switch to side 2 back in the old days, and we go to Hellion. And that's yeah, I'll let you go first. Hellion.
Oh yeah, this one here. I mean, Hellion's wicked. I mean, it starts off with Hellhound, hot leather on your legs, that smoking powder keg. You're riding on is hellbound. So it's pretty cool. I mean, the lyrics are pretty neat. You're going down in flames. You're riding Hades rails, Hellion, and it's pretty cool. I mean, this is a good song. Probably one of the stronger songs on the album. One of my favorite songs. I like this, and there's another one. There's a few more coming up. I mean, I find the album starts off really good, and then I find the second side starting with this song definitely it's got some great tracks as the album goes on. But no, I really like this song as well. Really heavy. It's got that first Hellion when he sings it. It's got kind of a distorted vocal sound to it, which is pretty cool. And then it only does it one time when it goes Hellion. It sounds like the devil, and then it goes back to just kind of Hellion for the rest of the choruses as the song progresses. So, but no, it's a kick-ass song for sure.
Yeah, this is probably with "I Want to Be Somebody." This is probably my favorite, or one of my two favorites on the
Oh
album.
yeah,
And I do like the way he says "hell," the end, or whatever,
yeah,
there in the chorus. And Blackie's vocals stand out on this song. It's more raw, but he doesn't really have the voice for the radio songs or anything. So I'm sure they didn't get much airplay anyway. So I don't know why they
yeah,
put the animal song on it too. It wasn't going to get on the radio. But yeah, that's one of the better songs to me too. And then we go
yeah.
to, I guess, the ballad you were probably mentioning, "Sleeping in the Fire." What do you like this ballad?
Oh yeah, like I know. I'm not generally a ballad guy. Like back in I mean, back then, and then even as the sort of whole glam and hair metal thing started to come in, it eventually became like a sort of a staple to put a ballad. Your first single would be a rocker, and then your second single would be a ballad, and then bands started putting two and three ballads on there because they're probably they were going after the female end of it. Things were, oh yeah, it's a great slow song, and so anyways, but this is a good ballad. It's really cool. I mean, like, if you think of a band like Metallica from Ride with Fade to Black, kind of could be considered maybe a darker ballad, but this would be up there like that for me. I mean, not as in song quality as the Metallica song, but just in the fact that it starts off really acoustic, and I like it. It's got pretty good vocals on it, and it's got a really good chorus. And when it goes through the Lucifer's magic that makes you numb, and you feel what it does. You're drunk on love. You're sleeping in the fire. So it's got some really cool lyrics to it. And I like it. It's a great song. It's like I say, I'm not a big ballad guy. If I mean, I never, I guess, listened to Warrant or anything like that, where they have the two or three ballads on their albums. But this is a real kick-ass song. It's just a slower song, but like the acoustic sound on it's wicked, and then it kind of rips off during just goes through on rips with the chorus, and Blackie's voice is really really cool on it. I like it. It's a cool song.
Yeah, it's more of, I guess, a power ballad, I would say,
Yeah,
than just your Warrant type ballad or whatever. But it's probably still not one of my favorites, as people might remember. I'm not a ballad guy either, very often. Anyway. And then we go to track number 8 is "On Your Knees," and this is another one I wrote down where kind of I think of what Kiss could have did this song too. I'm kind of more about the lyrics of the song and sexual overtones and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of get thinking, oh, they're probably inspired by Kiss to write this song. So what do you think of "On Your Knees"?
yeah, I love it. This is a great song, a great topic. But I like where is it here? I got it. I love it's just really cool. I love the fact it's right on like it's I mean, it's funny that PMRC didn't really go out. I mean, they probably went after a lot of it. So I mean, this would have been probably one of them too. I mean, it's not as is right in your face as Animal, but I love the lyric, "Mom and Daddy said the life that you led, you'll party your way straight to hell." So it's kind of neat. It's essentially saying, like, the sin that you buy and you sell. So I would assume that he's you've got the sexual overtone to it, but you also have You're on Your Knees. I think probably, I want to be somebody. You're on your knees. You're sort of paying for the price of fame to some degree. So that's what I get out of it. But it's a wicked song, and I've seen this live on live videos on YouTube and that, and I mean they do a wicked. It's wicked live. It sounds wicked live, and it just gets the crowd going. It's a friggin' amazing song. Not my favorite song on the album, but again, you've got Mom and Daddy in there again. They mentioned that in a couple songs. So it's, it was really a good slap against school, against parents. I guess they were going for that. And then you throw Animal in there. So,
Yes. Okay. Then we go to Tormentor. And this is another one where the chorus, that is the chorus, is they say Tormentor over and over again. But it's a good song, except that now that I'm older, I'm going, couldn't they have thought of a few more words I put in here? But anyway, what do you think of Tormentor?
so when knowing that we were doing this today, I asked my wife, I said, what's your favorite song off it? I mean, she went through all the songs, and this is her favorite song. So she loves this song. I think it's cool. This is the other one that I believe was co-written by Lawless and Chris Holmes. So that's kind of neat. But it was actually an interesting factoid. This was a song on the Dungeon Master movie soundtrack, and Blackie Lawless was in that movie. I never saw the movie. Did you see it?
No, I just read that earlier too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, and it's funny too because Blackie Lawless, he was slated to sidetrack a little bit here. He was slated to be the T-1000 in the Terminator movie, Terminator 2, when they had, they sent back these kind of skinny Terminator to go after Arnold there. He was supposed to be that in the movie, but he was way taller than Arnold, so they decided they didn't want to put him on there. And the other factoid is Trick or Treat, the movie Trick or Treat, which we love. The Blackie Lawless was up for the part of the lead singer of the band, but they wanted him to play Fastway music, and he wouldn't do it. Obviously, he's Blackie Lawless. I mean, he should have done Wasp. They should have made him sing the song, or but I believe Fastway had those songs already done, so they were like, could we get him? They were trying to work out that he could sing the Fastway songs, and he obviously refused to do that, which obviously. So he has a little bit of the I guess the acting bug in there, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's a cool song, like you say. This is it's massively repetitive. It's a cool song, and it kind of leads into the next song too, kind of along the same line for sure. It kind of breaks into that. We're heading into maybe some S&M and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the last two are both kind of heavier ones, and the last one, The Torture Never Stops, is maybe the heaviest one on the album, and it has some kind of like maidenish kind of galloping in it too. So what do you think of The Torture Never Stops?
One of my favorites. Ends the album off awesome, and it's a great song, and I love the fact that these albums were these songs on this album were just very, I guess for the time too, we have to remember, like, they were looking for quite a bit of shock value. I think when the record company and the band were probably sitting down, I mean, obviously that's with Animal, that's what got everybody talking about it. And and they got on the sort of the radar of the PMRC. And I thought, anything that would have a PMRC, I was hoping they would put the PMRC label on albums, because anything that had that on there, I would definitely buy it today. Oh yeah, it's got that on there. Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy that. Because that would have meant that the album's awesome, really good. But I think it's cool. It's a cool song. It just keeps going. They've got everything. If you're looking at this as a parent in the day, probably. And there's been hell of a lot more shocking stuff since 1984, and they brought this out. I mean, you're looking at the names of these: Sleeping in the Fire, On Your Knees, Tormentor, The Torture Never Stops, Hellion, Love Machine, I Want to Be Somebody. You're thinking to yourself, man, this is going to be one hell of a freaky album, and it definitely was. So, but no, it's a killer song, a great way to end off the album.
Yes, it's a good track to end it off with. So that's the album. I was gonna say something about, I don't know what I was gonna say there. But yeah, I think it would have, I would have liked to, if they would have included Animal Song, which
Yeah.
I guess we've already kind of talked about it a few times, but I'll just mention that I do like the start of the album where he says, or start of the song, I mean, where he says, I got pictures of naked ladies laying on my bed and all. But anyway, but yes, that was good for you to, like, for you when you were only 13, and me,
Oh
whatever, I was
yeah.
18, but I grew up on farming country stuff, so I wasn't around anything. And of course, we didn't have the internet back then or nothing. We had 3 TV channels, so all that stuff was shocking and like fun for kids or teenagers. And
Oh
thinking,
yeah.
oh, this is cool. I can't play it for my mom and dad, but it's still cool.
Oh yeah. And that I think, does the picture disc have like Blackie's codpiece with the blade coming through?
Yeah, it has that
Yeah.
on the one side, yeah, with the blood thing. I think I
Oh,
had
that's
two. I
cool.
think I also had the vinyl, like you probably have the picture sleeve. There's the cover thing. I think I gave that to somebody. I'm not even sure who,
Yeah.
since I had the picture disc too. So I gave somebody else the other one, and I don't know why
Yeah,
I had both for some
that's
reason.
wicked. Those are good collector items. I mean, that's yeah, that single, and I think the single wasn't originally released by Capitol. I think they kind of did it sort of underground because they didn't really want to. I mean, you can see a record company like Capitol Records didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole back then. This would have been probably even before the days of Walmart. You'd have Zellers or Kmart at the time, probably not wanting to carry something like that, and especially with the shroud of everything else that was going on at the time around this album. But and yes, the remastered one, the re-release, I think in '98, they added Animal to it, and I think they added another song, Show No Mercy, or Show No Mercy, and I think they did a cover of Paint It Black. So I have
Yes.
that one too. But yeah, it would have been cool to be on here, and I mean, probably, I think it went, like we were talking, and I think it went gold in both the US and Canada. And I think if you had that song on there, it probably would have reached pretty close to platinum status just on that alone. I mean, everybody wanted to get that. And I remember it was sort of a legend because I got the album probably a year after they had them for sale at a record store downtown Halifax. It was definitely an import, the actual single. And I remember getting it. I mean, my buddies I remember us taping it. And I don't even think, like, I was playing it on a turntable and I just put a radio, like a tape recorder, up to the speaker and taped it that way. And then gave it out to all my buddies at school. It was so popular for, 10 minutes.
Yes, actually, the single I got also does say import on it, so I guess I bought it the single on import too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was only $6 back
That's
then.
crazy. $6. Now you go to a record store, I bet you that is re-released on a picture disc, probably at least $60 now, or
Yeah,
so. They're
probably.
probably, with the picture disc for sure. Yeah, $6. Jeez.
Oh well. Anyway, okay, so let's rate the album. Now, yeah, I'll let you go first. What do you give this out of 10? Maybe tell
Okay.
me, if it was in be any different, what would you have gave it in 84 and what would you give it now if it would be
Oh,
any
in
different?
'84, I would have given this a 10 out of 10. I mean, back then, this would have been my whole. I mean, we're picking our top albums in 1984, and I mean, every year in the '80s, I find like just so much talented stuff and groundbreaking stuff coming out, and this is no different. And I would have given this a 10 out of 10. Now, for me, I mean, I think it's got some of the songs on it nostalgic wise. So back then, 13-year-old Jimmy would have given it a 10. Nostalgic wise, a 10. I would probably give it an 8.5, a 9 right now. Out of, if I was to look at this today, I mean, I'd love for somebody to release an album like this today and take me back, but that again would be only built on nostalgia. It wouldn't be built on, what I want nowadays is some stronger lyrical content, and
Mm.
maybe not as much repetitiveness of the choruses to some degree. But I do like a lot of the subject matter. I think it's, being a childish metalhead, I think it just scratches that itch.
Yeah, probably if it was 84, I probably would have gave it a 10 out of 10 too, because I know I listened to this album a lot. And then, like I said, the next album, The Last Command, I like that one even better.
Yeah.
So I like those two albums a lot. I can't really say why I stopped listening to them, if it was just because there was maybe more thrash came out and I like thrash better. And so maybe that's why it got pushed aside to like where I didn't listen to it. And the
Well,
chorus is probably is one of the reasons they got glam metal suggestion, just because the choruses were just, repetitive, but a lot of bands were back then. But to
I
rate
like
it
the
now, I'd
last.
probably give it a 7 out of 10 now, I guess, if I was like to sit down and really rate it on its own now.
That and I like the Last Command as well. I think that was like you had this as their debut, and then they got a little bit like Blind in Texas and the song Wild Child. I think Cries in the Night are on that. That's a wicked. Those are some wicked songs. And then by the third album, I think they were chemically and alcoholically. I think they was taking their toll. I know they were on like they were just sending them out on these massive tours, and I know for inside the electric, inside the Electric Circus, I know they it was kind of a lot more like they had I Don't Need No Doctor cover on there, and 95 Nasty is a good song, but I think it kind of lost it started to get more of a kind of a little bit of a sideshow, and they even did it up like as a circus. And then they came out with, I think the same year as that, is Live in the Raw, which was a pretty big live album for them, if you remember. And yeah, that was good, but they were just throwing so much stuff out there. And I think by the time the Headless Children came out, some more of the members had changed, and they had a couple of hits off that, and then they were kind of leaving the 80s. And I think, and they've had a lot, they've put out a lot of stuff, and I kind of consider it to some degree the newer stuff's probably more it's Wasp, but it's more along the lines of maybe a Blackie Lawless solo album, because
Yeah.
he's kind of even though they've had Frankie Banali in the band, they've had Johnny Rod, they've had a lot of guys in the band. Steve Riley was the drummer that took over from Richards here, who just passed away. Steve Riley did there a few months ago. I think they just lost sort of their focus, and there was a lot of infighting. And then you probably the same thing as me. Yeah, by the Headless Children, I was kind of like, I bought it, and I remember going, yeah, it's not as great as the previous albums. And then when he brought out the Crimson Idol, it was really good. And there's a song on there, Hold On to Your Heart, that I think got a lot of radio play. It was like another power ballad, but at that point, it was more of a rock opera that he was doing, a concept album of a guy who's becoming famous, and then all the sort of all the ups and downs of fame. So it was kind of neat, but then after that, I went through my CD collection for Wasp, but I was like, when did I get these? And they were all like KFD, and this one that he's on a horse, a bunch of horses, and I'm like, I don't even remember buying these. I don't even know if probably have I even played them. I don't know. So, but I kind of like you, where I don't know why I kind of moved off it, but you did.
Yeah. And like we said, I guess neither you didn't see them live, you said, like
No.
person, and as far as I can remember, I didn't either. I mean, they could have opened for somebody once, but it might have been at a time where I wasn't into them as much. I can't remember, but anyway, so that's the Wasp album. And like, yeah, I think if we would have did the Last Command, I probably would have gave it more than the 7 now, as it has more
Right.
pressure on it, and like you said, Wild Child and Blind in Texas, it was a little more heavier and
Yeah.
maybe a little better songwriting, even though it was only a year later in 1985. But anyway, okay, so now we're going to do our top 10 of 1984 albums. And there was a lot of albums to pick from here for
Oh,
me
yeah.
anyway. And I might have did
Man.
this before on a previous podcast, so you might have heard me already do this. So I'm not positive if I'll put them in the same order that I did on that episode. We'll see. My number one's still the same, but I'm just not sure if the rest is still the same. So I guess I'll go first in case I
Sure.
have done it before, so people won't shut off after you do yours. So I'll do mine first. So I have some honorable mentions because it was tough getting at the bottom, thinking, what do I want to put 8, 9, and 10? Because being in
Yeah.
Canada, I have like 5 if I count my top 10 plus my honorable mentions. I got like 4 or 5 Canadian bands here.
Wow.
And it was like But here, I'll do my top 10 first instead, and then maybe I'll do my honorable mentions after yours in case you don't mention. So my number
Cool.
10 is Trouble with their debut album, Psalm 9, as I'm a big Trouble fan, and that was their first album. And my number 9 is Whitesnake, Slide It In, as I just love that album. It's maybe
Oh
not,
yeah.
some people might not say they're metal, I guess, but you know, it was back then, really. David Coverdale and John Sykes on the guitar. I love that album. Number 8, I have one of my Canadian ones, Kick Axe with
Oh
Vices,
yeah.
which I'm sure a lot of people don't even know who Kick Axe is, but us Canadians probably do. But I listened to that album to death back then. And then I had Judas Priest as my number 7 with Defenders of the Faith. And my
Nice.
number 6 is another Canadian band with Helix and Walk on the Razor's Edge, which had the song Rock You on it, which of course was huge, especially in Canada. And I
Yeah.
think it did pretty good in the States too. My number, oh wait, where am I? 1, 2, 3. Now, my number 5 is Metal Church and their debut album, Metal self-titled Metal Church album. Because I love the first 2 Metal Church albums for sure. Number 4, I got Merciful Fate with Don't Break the Oath, which we did a podcast on before. Number 3 is Ronnie James Dio with The Last in Line, which we also have done a podcast on before. So you can listen. That might be where I did this list before, if you want to go back and listen to that episode. And number 2, I got Iron Maiden with Power Slave. And my number 1, which people should know since it was my number 1 of our top 50 albums of all time, is Metallica and Ride the Lightning is my number 1.
Ah, there you go.
So let's hear your top 10, and then I'll maybe name off my honorable after that.
Yeah, I got some of yours are my honorable mentions. It was just so hard because it was such a strong year for metal. I mean, wow, you know. So number 10, and I mean, I feel bad because like I probably should have put this up higher, but Dio, The Last in Line, wicked album. I mean, I love that album. I rated, and I shouldn't have done this, but I rated number 9, Stay Hungry, Twisted Sister, higher than Dio. I think I need to slap myself there, but anyways,
Well, let's
I
see.
love
That's one of my honorable mentions. Was Twisted
ah,
Sisters album. It's a good one.
I love it. I mean, I love Captain Howdy on that and Burn in Hell. And you know
Yeah,
what? I remember buying, and a lot of this too is I sat down with a list and I just thought about it back in 1984. And you know, now my number 8 is White Snake, Slide It In. I got to agree with you. It's an awesome album. This is their last album that I thought was good by them. I mean, they turned
yeah,
into sort of an MTV kind of hair metal band after this. And yeah, and I
yes,
know Still of the Night. I get it, Still of the Night, and all those songs were good, but no, no, no. The slide, and they even changed their logo after this album, and I think that hexed them. And I like
Mhm.
Slide It In to the front of their catalog. I have a box set called Little Box of Snakes, and it's got all those albums, those original albums in there, and I absolutely love it. It's when they were really good. Number 7, one of my favorite bands of all time, Canadian band, War and Pain by Voivod, their debut album. I love Voivod. This album, the original, is so underproduced. I love it. It's scratchy, it's gritty, it's something you've never heard before. And then I remember getting the album, picked it up as an import in Canada. Isn't that hilarious? And it's a Canadian band, but it was an import, and just blew me away. Number 6, Iron Maiden, Power Slave. My first concert I ever saw with Twisted Sister for Stay Hungry. You saw
Mhm.
it as well.
Yes.
That's right. So I mean, that's got a soft spot there. I probably should have put it up higher, but I love my number 5, one of my favorite bands all time, Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. I love that album, and I love the fact that I was only 13 or 14 when I picked that up, and it's such a cool kind of a reunion. I love it, and I listen to it all the time still today. Number 4, one of my favorite bands, Saxon, Crusader. I've got the Wasp debut as number 3. Number 2 is Don't Break the Oath, Merciful Fate, one of my favorite bands. I love King Diamond, and I mean Merciful Fate. This album's an important album. And number 1 is the same as yours, Ride the Lightning, Metallica. It has to be. I mean, I couldn't. You know, That's one of the best. My favorite albums, Kill 'Em All, but this is a close second. I'm talking milliseconds, millivotes just behind it. But I love this album, and it has to be number one. So, but what? Yeah, you go with your honorable mentions, and I'll go with mine. I got a whole bunch here.
Okay, well, one of them, well, I've already you mentioned two of them, Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry, and Deep Purple's Perfect Strangers. I have that
Nice.
honorable mention. And let's see, I have two Canadian bands in here, Exciter with Violence and Force, which I think was their second album, I believe. Yes.
Forgot
And
about that one.
And Pile Drivers, Metal Inquisition, you know Pile Driver?
Yes, that's a great album, a great band. Yeah.
Yes, and then my other one was Anthrax, Fistful of Metal, their first album. We actually just put if you follow us on Instagram, Stacia did a reel there. Like this episode is coming to Wednesday, but the anniversary was on the Sunday, the January 28th. That's the 40th year anniversary of the release of Fistful of Metal. So if you follow us on Instagram, you would have seen a little short reel on that album anniversary. So what are your honorable mentions?
Oh, well, we got a couple out of the same. So I picked Vice's Kick-Axe. I mean, I wanted to fit it in there. That is a wicked album, and rumor has it they're coming out with a new album. So I hope to God, like that's one band that should have been bigger, should have been more active. Just that album was it was an amazing album. The other one that I have of one of yours, Metal Church, the self-titled Metal Church album. I have that. I love Metal Church. It's wicked. I've got a Triumph album in there. So yeah, there's a lot of Canadian. I mean, Thunder 7. I think this would have been the first tour I saw Triumph, and I saw them twice, and I can't remember the other tour. It would be after this, maybe one or two albums after this, but love that album. I'm a huge Dokken fan, so Tooth and Nail by Dokken, which was a great album. Armored Saint, March of the Saint. I love that. Love Armored Saint. And one of the other ones that I really love is Yngwie Malmsteen for Rising Force. Huge Yngwie fan. I know everybody, like, every time I bring up Yngwie, everybody's like, how the hell do you like that guy for? Blah, blah, blah. But I love those early, I've got a lot of his catalog, and I love a lot of those early Yngwie albums, and really catchy kind of 80s sound to it. And, I loved Yngwie when he was originally in Alcatraz, and when he was breaking out, he had some wicked, he shreds. So some good stuff there. But yeah, lots of duplicates there, and a lot of Canadian. I mean, a lot of Canadian. I forgot about Helix, Walking the Razor's Edge. I've seen Helix like 5 times, and they are an awesome band to see live, and that's a wicked album. Wicked album.
Yeah, I was just trying to look up that Yngwie. Yeah, I liked Yngwie too, because which one is this? Is the one with okay, yeah. I like the Marching Out album better than that one, which would have been
right
a year later or 2 years later or the next one. Yeah, it is. Actually, it is a year later, 85. But yeah, I liked Yngwie back then anyway, before he kind of got soft too, and everybody wanted to be on MTV and get girls.
Yeah, exactly. And another one could be 1984 by Van Halen. I mean, I wouldn't. It's definitely more of a hard rocky album, but still, I mean, that album was huge, and it was really cool. I remember buying that album. I love the album art for it. So
I mean, yeah, there's so many. When you look through the list of 19, there's so many albums, like some of the ones you mentioned, like Armored Saint, which I had, and Battle Axe is another group that I had that album, and Bon Jovi, which I know is not metal, but Bon Jovi had an album that year.
Yeah, his first one.
And like it's just so many was out there. And like Dokken, I had that Tooth and Nail album also, and like Quiet Riot album. It wasn't their big, and then Rats Out of the Cellar, which was I like that album a lot too. But there's just so many that year. Then that's why W.A.S.P didn't even make my top 10 list, because there's just so many other ones that came out that year.
Yeah, and you know what? And
like you mentioned,
a good shout out to Stacia. Bathory's Bathory album came out there, but I only didn't put it on my list because I only really got into Bathory after hearing the podcast on the Metal Kit. And I went and bought the first 3 Bathory albums. So, in all fairness, I wasn't really into them back then. So, but there's another
Yes.
groundbreaking album.
And of course, This Is Spinal Tap also came out in 1984.
Oh yeah,
And that was a good album for a group that wasn't even real. So
yeah. Sex Farm. Song Sex Farm.
yes. Okay, so I guess that's it. I guess yeah, that was a good episode and I think the top 10 list is the most interesting actually, just because there was so much stuff out there that year.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Jim, for joining me tonight. And it was a good 2-person podcast. I know that's our second in a row, I guess, because you just did one with Ken.
Yeah.
On Anthrax. Yes, that's right. Persistence of Time. And I think our next podcast is going to be talking about the band As I Lay Dying. And I'll be with Ken, and a special guest will be on that episode as well. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.